In this video, let's start adding some detail to the hand grip area of our steering wheel. We're going to start by focusing on the area where our turn signal buttons are located. First, let's go ahead and hide the loft that we created and start a sketch on the side face of our steering wheel base. We want to add a start and end point for a spline, and we want to add some relations and dimensions to this. We want to make sure that we have a horizontal relation between the endpoints of this face and the endpoints of our spline. Then we want to apply a dimension. In this case, I'm going to start by using 10 millimeters for the upper and lower edges. Then I want to induce a little bit of curvature by grabbing that handle and rotating it roughly 5 degrees. The next thing we want to do is create a sketch on our top plane that is going to intersect this. We'll start by creating a line that is horizontal. Then we're going to create a line that's at an angle. The horizontal line we want to convert to a construction. We want to apply a dimension between these. I'm going to give this a 5-degree dimension. Then we want to select the endpoint and Control select the sketch in our last sketch. Make sure that they pierce. This will allow us to create a boundary surface using our first sketch as direction 1 and our second sketch as direction 2. This surface is going to be used as a helper, and this allows us to use our direction reference of 5 degrees. Another great thing is you can go back and modify that sketch and introduce a spline that will allow you to create some curvature. In this case, we're going to keep it simple and just use a straight line as a reference. Next, we want to create a sketch on the back face. We need to get as close as possible to the shape of our steering wheel. For this, I'm going to start by drawing a circle, getting it as close as possible to the sketch, then fixing it in place and fixing its diameter. We can also convert this to a construction and use that as a reference. Next, I'm going to offset that 5 millimeters, draw a couple reference lines for construction from the center up to an area where I roughly think the curvature starts to change. This lower section, it's actually going to be a vertical line. Using our trim tool, I'm going to remove that area and then draw 2 splines. I'm going to draw a start and end point spline for the upper edge and a start and end point spline for the lower edge. We want to apply a tangency between each one of those. Next, we want to use that for an extruded surface. We're going to extrude this 25 millimeters, or really any amount that you wish, and then we're going to create a 3D sketch. To help visualize, I'm going to turn off our sketch picture. I'm going to go to our Sketch tab, start a 3D sketch, use our Spline dropdown, and use Spline on Surface. This allows us to create a spline located on the surface of our last extruded sketch. Once this spline is created, we can grab its endpoints and add relations. We want to make sure that the endpoints are coincident with the first helper surface we created. We can also apply some tangency relations to help induce some curvature into this geometry. Now, if we take a look at this from a few different angles, you can see we've introduced some interesting curvature here. We want to make sure that everything's nice and smooth, so it might actually end up deleting some of these extra spline handle points. For instance, we might not need this spline handle, so I'm going to right-click on it and delete it. It doesn't really affect the curvature, and it'll allow us to induce the least amount of strain into our spline. We can exit this sketch and go to our Surfaces tab and create a filled surface. Using our 3D sketch and the end of our helper surface, applying a tangent relation or a curvature relation, we can create a filled surface that's going to give us a little bit of curvature in this area and allow us to replicate the geometry as best as we can using our sketch picture. Now we can hide or delete our helper surfaces and take a look at what we've created. So you can see we've created a surface using our references that has some curvature. It's very mild. This is going to be a good base for us to create our turn signal buttons and blend into the rest of the steering wheel. That concludes starting adding detail to our steering wheel.